Katy walked across Scotland while we were writing this book together. She left during the book and walked 100 miles. I'm like, my co-author is gone.
Our grandparents didn't really exercise. They didn't need to. There was so much movement happening. And then it was like, oh, it turns out your body doesn't work really well without a lot of movement.
For a lot of us, we stop at the I don't want you. Knowing your own mind, that it puts up that little protest.
We're constantly battling all these invisible forces that are set up there for us, for survival, but that we have to navigate.
If you're not motivated by exercise is good for you, it's not going to suddenly become motivating.
A lot of folks are losing their movement time to their phones. I mean, this is like a real thing.
Can you set up your technology to help you instead of hinder you?
Whenever we say yes, we're never going to be unhappy about saying yes to those walks or those opportunities.
What is it that makes you go?
Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be sitting down with two incredible experts who are about to transform how you think about movement and exercise. I've been in this space a long time, and even I never looked at it quite like this. Katy Bowman, who's been on the show before, she's a renowned biomechanist, and I've learned so much from her already. And I'm excited to share with you because today she's joined alongside clinical psychologist, Dr. Diana Hill. So together, they've written this incredible book. It's titled, I Know I Should Exercise, But. It has 44 excuses, real excuses as to why people don't get it done. Some of them won't surprise you and some of them will. And it tackles the psychology behind why we all resist movement, some in different variations. And in this conversation, we're going to dig deep into why that treadmill in your bedroom has become an expensive clothing hanger. And more importantly, how can you change that? You'll discover the invisible psychological barriers holding you back from moving your body. Barriers you may not even know that exist. So it's not just about like, oh, we're lazy or we're busy. There's actual psychological barriers. So we'll explore how your relationship with movement goes far beyond just weight management or aesthetics, and how finding your personal why can transform exercise from a chore into something meaningful and sustainable. Katy and Diana bring such different perspectives. Katy with her practical nuts and bolts approach to movement, and Diana with her deep understanding of our emotional relationship with our bodies. And together they offer wisdom for everyone. So whether you're struggling to start moving or trying to find more joy in the movement that you're already doing, this show is for you. So let's dive deep with Katy Bowman and Dr. Diana Hill on rethinking our relationship with movement. Welcome to the Gabby Reece Show. Let's go. So Katy, welcome back.
Thank you.
Katy Bowman and Diana Hill. Welcome, Diana. It's the first time I've met you.
Yes.
I read your book, both your book.
Our book.
That you did together. And I know I should exercise, but. And I thought when I saw the cover with the treadmill as like a laundry hanging apparatus, I thought that sums it up pretty much. I think every person would see that image and be like, I can completely relate to that. So before we dive into all the reasons why and the psychology about why people don't exercise, maybe each of you can just share your background, because I think it's important for me when people who really go deep on subjects and then try to simplify that for people so they understand, hey, this person has spent a lot of time thinking about this and has, done a lot of schooling for this, and then is still bringing it back up to this everyday language. This for me is such a powerful union, and you do that really beautifully in this book. So, Katy, you've been on the show before, but just remind people all of your expertise.
Dishes. I mostly do dishes. If we're going to talk about volume of time, but I'm a biomechanist, which is just someone who studies the levers of the body, the muscles, the anatomy, and spend a lot of time in the injury prevention area of movement, teaching corrective exercise, helping people figure out how to bust through aches and pains. But then also talking about one of the reasons we have aches and pains is maybe because either our movement diet is really narrow. You're doing the one thing that you love to do again and again and again. And so you're not cross-training across all of your parts, or you don't move really at all. You're fairly sedentary. And helping people diversify their movement diet a little bit, and then also making sure that people understood that the fitness or exercise bout that they were doing wasn't the only place that movement had to fit in. It didn't only have to be 45 minutes or 60 minutes. It didn't only have to be 60% heart rate or 85% heart rate, that maybe you could just take a walk sometimes. Maybe you could walk your kids to school. Maybe you could be watching TV and do some stretches. So helping people expand their concept of movement beyond exercise to fit it into more domains of their life. And I've been doing it for a really long time now, over 20 years.
Do you have furniture in your house yet?
I have some furniture in my house, but I would say that if you walked into my house, it's low on the seats. The monkey bars that I had when my kids were younger are gone, but there's still hanging bars. There's still rock holds. I've had to change the way our house was dynamic as our kids have grown up into teenagers.
Yeah. I love that. It's like my biggest nightmare, right? You know how far away the ground is. I've shared this with you. I'm like, I look at the ground and I'm like, it's so far away. Mm-hmm. We used to joke that before my knees, I've had things, but I've had my knee replaced years ago, so it's fine. But something would drop and I'd be like, well, I guess we have to get a new one. Or I'd look at the kids and they'd look at me like, you want me to get that for you, don't you? So I always love that, though, that you used your everyday real space to encourage this exercise diet, this movement diet, because that's really ultimately, when I think of it, that is the only way to do it, is to incorporate it into all the places and spaces that we are living and working and existing.
Yeah. And I think ultimately I just want people to feel better. And I know that physical activity is such a powerful medicine for people to take. So I'm just trying to repackage it in whatever way it might work for the person listening or the person reading. It's like, well, you don't like this? Fine. Not everyone likes sardines as maybe their source of fatty acids, but there might be something else that they like. So to really talk about movement like food, to say there's some essentials that you need here, but it's a buffet of choices. Mm-hmm. So find something that works. Find something that you love, and then find something that fits into your life. And maybe you don't eat your favorite food for every single meal, but you still eat every day. Yeah. And it needs to be like that for movement too.
Yeah. Diana, what about you? How did you, it's interesting because we're talking about movement, but you're really bringing the psychological aspect to this book. And I thought it was really great that you guys partnered up. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you got into this project and how your background has led you here.
Well, I'm a clinical psychologist. I think that my specialty is in wise effort, how to use our energy in wise ways and how to put it in places that matter to us without depleting ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it oftentimes with movement, we're so on or off. So that treadmill picture, for some people, the treadmill looks like that. They have their clothes hanging on it. But if you were to look at my treadmill a decade ago, it would be worn to the bone because my movement was just on a treadmill to nowhere, too much movement in one spot without the diversity and the values built in. And, my lineage goes way back to disordered eating and anorexia and a different kind of movement than the folks that aren't moving, but it's just as problematic and it's just as unwise, right? That we're not connecting to our values around movement. So my academic history is around helping people develop something called psychological flexibility. And I have done research in the area and I'm involved in projects and writing in that way. But I think my heart is, and connected to Katy's work, has really been in reclaiming my relationship with movement and helping people reclaim their relationship with movement, but also just their effort in general, like how to use it in more joyful ways, but also more productive ways. Katy's taught me a lot. I was on the Katy bandwagon for a while. We were cutting the legs off of our dining room table. We were all those things not just because it's nutritious for our bodies, but for our souls and our whole being. And that's what we hope this book sort of helps people get to wherever they are in their relationship movement.
Did you reach out to Katy? How did you two get connected?
Diana came to a workshop that I was teaching and invited me on her podcast. And I really liked it because I've never really worked in the psychology realm. I'm like so nuts and bolts. I'm like, here's how the movements work. And you know me, like I'm not particularly motivated by feelings or emotions. Like that's sort of not well developed. Like I never thought about people's feelings around movement as much. I could certainly see resistances, but it wasn't a strength of mine, but it was a strength of Diana's. And so we were talking about movement, and I was having an issue as my kids got older to be like, oh, it seems like they don't want to move. And how do I get them on my page? And she was like, well, you can be on the same page. It might not be yours. Like, have you thought about the kind of movement they wanted to do? And I just thought that this was such a expansive concept to what I was already trying to do, to recognize that people had thoughts and beliefs around movement, including me, that they were unaware of. And I just found such a simple little bit of advice that she gave me of listen to your kids. And when they are asking you to move with them, it's like, oh, do you want to arm wrestle, mom? And hold my legs and like try this cartwheel and do this flip and things that I don't really want to do. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't my favorite movement food. But I had this whole story about how they didn't want to move, but it was really, they don't want to do what I want them to do anymore. And by that little shift in my perception, the way I was thinking about it, I started moving with them all the time, moved out of my own comfort zone. So I was like, I think maybe there's a book here. And what if we just went through all these excuses that people have, and you would give your great advice around what is going inside people's minds. And then I could add some of the practical applications of how that might look to how you change your environment, or you change dialogue, or like the nuts and bolts of the physical expression of the behavior. And then here we are.
I have a basic question, which is both of you know a lot about certain things. I'm just curious, when you get in that place, and you're obviously clearly really different. Like, I would probably say you and I, Katy, are more similar, where it's like feelings aside, let's just get it done. And now, Dr. Hill, are you going by Diane or Diana?
Diana.
Because you called her Diane.
Oh,
okay. Just want to make sure.
I'm calling
her
Katy with an IE.
That's right.
I'm going to spell her Katy with an IE for the rest of the day.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to make sure, because I don't want to make a mistake. Okay. So, and Diana seems more heart-based. I mean, she has a butterfly earring.
She's heart-based.
You know what I'm saying?
The monarch song.
She's like, come on.
I know.
Okay.
And I made them.
So.
Love it.
You know what I mean?
I
do. I'm just curious, separately, each of you, when you're in the moment, because we all are there every week, and you think, I don't want to. I don't feel like it. Do you have a go-to? And obviously you've done it enough times that you know how good you're going to feel after and all the blah, blah, blah. But sometimes we still all, even though we have a deep practice and we've done it for years, do you have a thing that sparks you towards and through and into the movement on the days, quote, you don't feel like it?
Yeah. First, I've just gotten to know that I don't want to voice it's like a familiar friend or frenemy that's going to come. And so I'm familiar with it. There's lots of I don't want to. I mean, waking up with when the kid in the middle of the night. Yeah. And you're like, I just don't want to go in there. And you like, I don't want to go. And what is it that makes you go?
Well, it's just it's an unrelenting commitment to the role.
Yeah. Unrelenting commitment to role. So that may be part of like a value for you, is that commitment to the role.
Yeah.
Part of what also makes me go in there with the kid.
Well, and love though, with a kid.
It's also like love. Yeah. It's, I know I don't want to, but when I'm in there, something magical happens when I actually climb into the bed and I'm with the kid, and it's not as bad usually as I think it's going to be. So there's the knowing your own mind, that it puts up that little protest. And I do call it, I think our minds are frenemies in that way, that oftentimes our mind can be a friend, and it can say things to us that can be really helpful. And then our mind can be an enemy. And you are the wise person that gets to know, are you being a friend or not so helpful right now? And what in my heart, what in my values, how could I bring that closer? So for me I had that this morning. I didn't want to go. I was out later than I wanted to be last night, and it was early, and we were going to go do this. And I didn't want to, and I wanted to, because what I wanted to was to be able to not hurt in the car when we were driving. I wanted to feel awake and alert and be focused during this interview. I wanted to keep that unrelenting commitment to twice a week. I go do this, like, it's new for me, this like weight thing where I'm, perimenopausal. I'm like, you got to lift the weights. So I'm trying to, make sure I'm doing that. For a lot of us, we just start with we stop at the I don't want to, and we let that run the show. So we have a lot of, strategies around that.
Well, for me, so I'm not really tuned into that part of why I want to.
You just put your head forward and the body follows.
Well, or sometimes it'd be like, well, I'll just do 5 minutes, so I'll trick myself. And I even know that I'm like, you just have to do 5 minutes. And that helps, as well as having another person. I find that if I have talked to another person about, like, we're going to meet, or, I do a lot early in the morning. If early in the morning is just an easy time for me to get it. And if I don't get it at that time, I find it gets trickier as the day goes on. So I've just really spent so many decades at this point just knowing myself. It has to be early. But I have mornings where I don't want to get up. But if I have this other person that's going to go, I'm not going to let them down. I have an appointment or just I'll show up for them. So those are my 2 strategies.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been doing this a long time, and I seldom do I wake up and think, oh, I just can't wait.
Right.
Yeah.
And people think that's the case, or they don't think you struggle and you're wrestling that to the ground. And community has been the thing, because it's like, well, everyone's showing up at 8:30. I got to be ready to go, or 8 o'clock, or whatever it is. And the days that there's a wiggle room, I have to really stay on it. So I just bring that up because even the people who know and who write long books and spend hours in the space, I think, Diana, you talking about friend of me, I think we're constantly battling our biology. Yeah. We're constantly battling all these invisible forces that are set up there for us, for survival, for a lot of things, but that we have to navigate. And so I just bring that up because I think it's important for people, because I think they think, well, I'm the only one. It's like, no, if you're not, like, I have friends that are runners or whatever. They just they never think about it. They go run for hours. They're alone. They don't need another person. Those are the anomalies. Those people are the anomalies. Everyone else, even the most fit person, professional athlete, doesn't matter. They need community, someone, something, a class, something to show up for. So let's talk about the psychology of why we don't train, because that's really, I love that you have these sort of movements, solutions and answers, but that really this is about setting up the framework for the psychology of why we don't move, which I'll be honest with you, I never really thought about at this level until I read this book.
Yeah, most of the time we just get the movement's good for you and you should do it. I know we should exercise.
Park farther away.
Yeah. And there's so much going on. I mean, we open the book with why aren't you parking farther away? Why are you circling the parking lot when you know?
Oh, I love that one.
There's so much going on.
Yeah.
You're driving round and round to get closer, and it's such a joke because you can't walk across the parking lot.
Especially if you're trying to get to like an exercise class and you're driving
That's
around.
the best.
Like, that's the worst, right? Or, the folks that are about to get on an airplane and sit for 5 hours and, trying to find where's the seat in the airport? I can't find the seat, right? So what is it about that? And it's not just, it's about, I don't want to be the only, if you're in the airport, I don't want to be the only one that's standing or squatting or doing yoga in the corner. That's embarrassing, right? When we live in a sedentary culture, to be the one that's moving, you may be the only one that's doing that. And we don't want to stand out. We don't, so there's that evolutionary drive to be part of the group. There's also all of these rules in our minds about what constitutes movement. And some of them we don't even know. We're fish swimming in the rules of our water. So we don't even know that we have those rules. And until you start unpacking them and challenging them and actually breaking some of them, do you start to get a little bit more freedom to move your body in ways, in unexpected ways. I'm a therapist and I move. We were talking on the way over. I'm like, I probably have, I'll see 6 clients in a day. I'm probably only sitting with 2 of them. The other ones, I'm walking a little bit. We're doing walking meetings. Maybe I'm moving in my chair. I'm sitting down. And that all requires, again, knowing my own psychology of why I wouldn't move in those situations, because there's expectation. So we tackle a lot of these in the book, our feelings that contribute. we're anxious, we're depressed, that can contribute to us not moving.
This podcast has been brought to you by Bon Charge. I've been using my Bon Charge red light face mask for over a year now and really loving it. I've even shared it with my daughters. And the red light face mask, it has so many amazing benefits to your skin. So the red light can actually boost collagen production, and that will make your skin look younger, firmer, and radiant. So it can do things like help reduce the appearance of things like fine lines, wrinkles. And another way that it can get used is with scars and blemishes. So maybe you're navigating something like that. And it's so easy to use. It's cordless. It's comfortable, 10 to 20 minutes a day. Sometimes I just sit at my desk and I can wear it. It's one and done. It's painless. And I want you to do all the things. I want you to get to bed. I want you to be hydrated, eat, exercise. But this is sort of like a nice extra little something special you can do for yourself and your skincare routine. And it's so easy to incorporate. And this red light face mask from Bon Charge really will impress anyone. If you've been curious, now's the time. They have a great offer for you. They will give you 15% off your entire order. All you have to do is go to boncharge.com/Gabby. That's BONCHARGE.com/Gabby. If you want to try your red light face mask today, they also give you a 12-month warranty and free shipping. And that 15% off is your entire order. So I, for example, have their sauna blanket. Love it. Heats up in a minute, easy to clean. And I've got some great headphones. So if you're curious about the red light face mask, all you have to do is head to boncharge.com/Gabby. This podcast has been brought to you by Puri. So I've been taking Puri's O3 for a few months now. I always take everything before I share it with you, and I'll tell you the things I love about it. First, it offers a high dose of 2,000 milligrams long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. It's EPA and DHA in natural triglyceride form. So that's 80% omega-3 concentration, which is very hard to find. I'm interested in omega-3s for cardiovascular health, my eye health, brain health, but I want those high quality ingredients. So every batch is third-party tested against more than 200 harmful contaminants, things like heavy metals, pesticides. And just to give you comfort, you can scan the QR code on the bottle to see the test results for that specific batch. So it's not like, hey, this is what we use in our brand. It's each batch that you can check, and every test result is published online for complete transparency. So if you want to check out Puri's O3, you can do what I did, and you can add it to your routine now, and they've got a great deal for you. So right now, you can get an amazing 20% off, or if you choose their already discounted subscription, you'll get almost a third off the price. So you can make your choice whichever way you want to do it. If you want to try it, if you want to subscribe to it, it's only available when you visit my exclusive URL. So it's puri.com/Gabby. And don't forget to use my promo code Gabby, Gabby. You'll save 20% off when you make a one-time purchase. Still really amazing savings for you. So go now to puri.com/Gabby. That's PUORI.com/Gabby. Don't forget to use the promo code Gabby at checkout. You know, I thought it was interesting. Katie's talked a lot about modern environment. It really discourages movement. Mm-hmm. And to your point, and that's sort of a social norm. Like we're here, we sit, we do this, we do that. And it makes perfect sense. But you talk about these psychological barriers, and it can even be traumas and things that have happened, which again, these are really new ideas for me. And one of the things that felt so important is that we have this thing about movement, and is also connected to how we look or our weight management versus, the body and the joy and just the humanity, being a human being and moving versus, well, I equate how I look, or this is how I deal with my weight and movement. This for me might be the most important point in the whole book. I'm not trying to be a spoiler alert, but
spoil it.
This is a big deal, because I think that's where 98% of the world is living. You have people who know how to go out and have fun, or they go and connect to nature with movement, or they just get up and down and they move their body. But I think most people are wrangling this.
It's still absolutely tethered to the concept of like the reason that you would move is to have a certain body composition or to have a certain aesthetic. And I think it probably started with, that's kind of where exercise science started. Like I tried to put in some of its roots, and like, this is where the concept of exercise, which is a fairly modern concept that only came about after, like our grandparents didn't really exercise. They didn't need to. There was so much movement happening. And then it was like, oh, it turns out your body doesn't work really well without a lot of movement. And cardiovascular disease is still that top disease. And there's still that association with physical activity levels and body composition, and therefore cardiovascular health, we'll say. And so they all got kind of mushed together. They weren't necessarily teased apart, but they're pretty well teased apart now. But the messaging, and if you grew up in the last 20 years, like, that's how the message was packaged. Your doctor's not going to necessarily tell you to exercise if you have a certain body composition, even though you still need the movement, because it's still sort of seen like a weight loss tool. And it also is still in the package of that 30 minutes, that fitness, how it looks in the gym, which doesn't give us a lot of options if that doesn't resonate with you. I think for plenty of people, it resonates, but not necessarily for the majority of people. And so they're stuck. They need this movement. There's no other model. Like they can't see another reason to connect to it. And our big point in the book was, if you're not motivated by exercise is good for you, it's not going to suddenly become motivating. You have to identify your motivations for movement. And there's a lot of them. It's a pretty broad, again, buffet of motivations, but you have to do a little bit of work in figuring out, like, why would you care how your body is working? You talked about joy, and there's all these examples, like, and you don't really recognize it until you don't have it. You can't pick up a kid because your back is hurting, or you can't get on the ground, and you have grandkids now all of a sudden, and you wish that you would have stayed more physically active, not to look a certain way, but to be able to feel a certain way with these other people. So just trying to help people reconnect with values.
Diana, I want to ask you, because you're coming at it also from a really different perspective. Let's take a woman who didn't grow up with brothers, didn't play, wasn't in sports in school, maybe didn't have athletic parents. Okay, because I think boys by nature kind of rabble rouse and play with each other. There's a little bit more of that language. Let's say you have a woman who she didn't grow up with any of these things, and then she did or didn't go to college, just started having children, working. Now you're, mid-30s. You look up and you think, oh, wait a second, I got to look at this. Or someone in her life, a doctor or something, has said, or she's put on 10 pounds, or whatever the myriad of things are. How do we because I think there's a lot of people, but especially women, right? It's not ladylike. It's a daunting environment when you talk about the exercise environment, unless she's going hiking with her girlfriends, or, I'm making it up. How do we connect? How do we talk to her and see and get her to explore, why would I move? Without it being, I want to drop these 10 pounds. I guess I have to go suffer on some bike that doesn't go anywhere in place, to loud music. I'm uncomfortable. I'm insecure about it, or self-conscious. How do we get her to start to look at it and define it for herself?
Yeah, well, I first would want to know, what is the messaging that she's received in those 30 years around movement? What did she see? Like, maybe, how did her mom move? What was she seeing in school? How are her friends moving? And what is she moving now? And did she shy away from it for a reason, right? So, our motivation to move or not move, we talk about motivation in the book as 3 types of motivators, right? So we talk about the aversion. Like, maybe she's not moving because there was something that happened that made her start to believe that's scary. I'm going to get shamed. I mean, maybe we all have like the horrific PE experience that we could share.
You're picked last.
I remember in science class, my science teacher putting the weights on the board and mine being at the top, close to the top, and these experiences that would stick in us for a long time around moving our bodies. So I'd want to get a little history. I'm a psychologist. I always want to get a little history on somebody. But then I'd also want to know, are there ways in which she's moving already that she thinks that she's not a mover and she's not an exerciser? Because we have these, I'm not the type of person who, or I'm not an exerciser, I'm not athletic is a common one. I'm not coordinated. These beliefs that she has, but maybe she's already moving and she doesn't even know it. And are there places where she experiences just a little bit of like, maybe she's moving when she dances, alone, or maybe she's moving when she's just walking in the grocery store, or she's walking her kids to school, or I don't know if she has kids. Who's this woman? She has kids or not? Okay, we'll flesh her out.
Yeah, that's why she didn't, she looked up and was like, wait a second.
Yeah, maybe she's on the floor with her kids. Are there ways in which you are in your body and you experience being in your body that feel good? I would start there. And can we do, it's called shaping in psychology, where you take a behavior and you reinforce it and you build it and you grow it. I'm much more interested in that than trying to get her to go to a gym where it may not be, the right fit for her. But I'm also interested in the why, because if she's gained 10 pounds and someone's telling her that she needs to move her body for that reason, that would not be enough for anybody to have the sustained lifelong movement that Katy and I are talking about. So I'd want to know why, what would potentially open up for her ways of being in the world that she is not now. That if she were moving, like if we could like snap a finger and she had a relationship with movement, was alive and vibrant and out in the world, what would she do? What would she be doing? And why would she want to be doing it? What would open up?
Yeah, because is that lack of movement, or at least what she thinks is a lack of movement, holding her back in these other ways?
Going on hikes with her friends or playing or travel or whatever. Yeah.
It's so interesting because it's for me, it's so interesting because I even in my own way have isolated movement before it was my job. And then I connected because of injury. I didn't need to learn the hard lesson. I didn't need to go, I should probably take care of my health. I know what it's like to not be able to get up from a chair unassisted when you have an injury. So you learn really quick, hey, it's really cool to walk from here to the door by myself quickly. So I didn't need to do that later. But it was first my job. Then it was the expectation of, well, I'm supposed to show up and be fit and look fit. And then when kids came, it was sort of like, oh, wait a second. This is going to be my best friend to help me stay within myself as I serve all these people around me. And so the meaning for it has changed, but it is still something that I don't integrate as much into everything. I still isolate it as, this is my movement life. Unless you like go to a beach and you go swim or do whatever, even though that's movement, I look at that as like, oh, that's fun. So it's so interesting. I mean, Katy, you might be one of the only people I know that just sort of moves around.
And I think a lot of that came from not having as much time as I would like to do the concentrated movement. As work and kids came up, it was that shift for me that required me to maybe not have that 2 hours to train, like luxuriate in training. Oh, it's such a luxury to have that time, right? Which is that's the difficult transition from, I think, being, whether you're actually playing team sports or you're just generally athletic as, a late teenager, early 20-somethings, and then you have these kids and it's like, breaks. I just couldn't. I had this tool that was so amazing and it no longer fit into my life. So I needed to readjust. And I always wondered, like, is it as effective as when I'm doing this super concentrative bout of exercise? But I just walked across England a few months ago and I had no time to do the training. Like if I was going to do that, if I was, 30 or 27 or something, I would have been like, I need a walking program and, made sure I did my miles. And I just didn't have time. I get dishes. I already said I had dishes and stuff to do. But my all day movement priority kept me strong enough, to go out and hike 20 plus miles day after day for 6 days. Where I was like on my foot going up and down hills for 12 hours a day and I was fine. And I thought, well, I'm almost 50. That was a good data point of saying my peaks might not be the same peaks, but the volume is there, and that worked.
Yeah.
And that's good enough. That's good enough for me.
What are some of the things in doing this book that you, like, what are the things, the barriers that a lot of people are dealing with that they don't even know are there? These psychological barriers. Because I don't think most of us, we think, okay, I'm too busy. I think that's usually it. I don't really want to necessarily. I'm intimidated. And then what starts happening is I don't feel good. I don't have the energy. And it's this cycle. But what are some of the psychological barriers that our people are navigating that they don't even know?
Well, I think I'm too busy is a psychological barrier.
You do?
And people believe that that's the truth. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Katy walked across Scotland while we were writing this book together. She didn't add that part. She left during the book and walked 100 miles. I'm like, my co-author is gone. Is she going to come back in time to get this draft done? And she did. But we have, so we have a belief that we don't have enough time. And we write about this in the book in terms of how time affluence is more, is your belief around how much time you have, not the reality of how much time you have. How affluent do you feel like you are with your time? And people that move more are actually more affluent. They feel like they have more time. People who are more generous feel like they have more time. I don't have enough time to be generous or to move, but actually you'll feel like you have more time if you are generous and move. And we have to look at, we stop so short. We just, I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. My kids are preventing me from moving. That's a common one. It's selfish. And that was a fun one because sometimes it can be selfish.
Is there a difference in that psychology between men and women typically? I'm curious, the mom guilt.
Around mom guilt, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you...
There was an interesting study on
really
self-compassion where they looked at, is self-compassion always good for you? I went down a big rabbit hole of self-compassion for a while. And we all think self-compassion, which is when you're hurting or you're having a hard time, being kind to yourself and treating yourself with encouragement. But there was this one outlier study where these researchers looked at men who were highly self-compassionate, but that also didn't see self-compassion as part of a greater whole, an interconnected whole, that when you are kind to yourself, when you take care of yourself, it helps you.
He was just compassionate to himself.
He was just, I need some time to myself right now. I'm really stressed. So I'm going to go to the gym and work on, whereas, and what they found is that type of self-compassion was actually associated with selfishness. So sometimes, I would say actually maybe not selfish, but, if you err on more of the sort of the compulsive, rigid exerciser, and you're not looking at it holistically of how this is impacting my whole life, my whole being, other people, then maybe at that we need more flexibility there too, right? The same thing as if you're never prioritizing movement and you're irritable as heck and you're yelling at your kids and you really would benefit from going from a walk for you and for your kids, right? The most compassionate thing for you and your kids, it's a flow. So compassion flows 3 ways: to others, to yourself, right? And then you can receive it. That movement can become part of that flow. And that's the sort of mental reset that we need to make, because we do have that tendency, like you were talking about, Gabby, we just compartmentalize stuff. That's what the brain likes to do. It likes to put things in boxes. It's safer, rather to be the kind of mover that Katy's talking about, where it's just whoa, it's kind of all over the place. It's in my life. It's in my world. It's my community. It's my friend time. It's my self-care time. It's my work. It's all of that. And that's not how most of us think about exercise and movement.
Well, think about even going to school, right? Sit down at your desk, be quiet for this X amount of hours. I mean, did you see in Texas, they just brought back PE? They brought it back. I mean,
PE is back.
PE is back. So we learn this so early. We get indoctrinated so early into all of this thinking. And then if we're going to be responsible adults, we sit at a desk, we have a chair, we sit and do work. So when someone comes to either one of you, because you get it on all these sides, and they have been, and I understand, right? Civilization, there's got to be rules, I guess, for the system to move forward in a certain way. I believe, I have a feeling, and I'm certainly married to somebody where it's like kind of question everything. But once you land on the big rules, which is, hey, you're going to have to work hard, be kind to each other. Let's tell the truth, whatever. There's just some big rules, but why do we have to do it that way? Always question that, right?
Yeah.
But when you have someone who comes to you that you go, hey, this is a 9-to-5er. This is what they got. This is what they're dealing with. They're 2-3 kids in, they got a mortgage. Like, this is what they're dealing with. They can't just blow up their life and do the thing. What's the invitation? What's the baby steps? What are the things because I think a lot of people live there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, I'll do mine first. And I would say to a 9-to-5er or even a student, I guess it involves your kids too, right? The kids have sort of a 9-to-5 flow as well. As like, Are you maximizing your mornings, your lunch hours, and after work? Like the parts that you have more control over. Like, let's not focus and put all our attention on the least malleable part of our life. Why don't you start with the choices that you're making around the most malleable? What are you doing on the weekends? What are you doing on your vacations? Because if those spots that are completely in your leisure time domain and you're not making the adjustments there, then I would say that you're probably not as hamstrung as you think you are. It's just that kind of inertia to keep doing the same thing. So can you add something? What are you doing at lunchtime? You have an hour lunch, you have a 30-minute lunch. Could you do 5 minutes of stretching, 15 minutes of walking?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those rules that's not really a rule. It's like, okay, you have to go to the meeting to be responsible, but do you have to sit and just kind of lounge in your chair? Could you just, as an adult, talk to the other adults in your office saying, hey, my back is bothering, mind if I stand up while we have this meeting?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like that's a perfectly reasonable request for all adults showing up is, can I meet some more of my needs while I'm also being responsible at the same time?
Yeah.
And that 9-to-5er needs to be able to know that their back is hurting. So to add on to that, what Katy is talking about is that a 9-to-5er often is a 9-to-5er in terms of awareness of what's happening inside. From 9 to 5, they're checked out from what's inside. And then at 5, it hits them like a semi-truck.
Yeah.
I lived that way I would, give. It's all going out. It's all going out. I'm all about you. What's happening for you? And shut off my body. We see this with healthcare workers that don't go pee, right? So the ways in which we shut ourselves off, and when we're shutting ourselves off, we're shutting off all sorts of things, our emotional selves, but also the human body's longing to move. There's a lot about our brain and our biology that is, yes, encouraging us to be sedentary, but that's not the full story. We also have a brain and biology that really wants to move. That's why it feels so good when you get into your community and you're moving together. And if you are a 9-to-5er, I would recommend part of your 9-to-5, the very basic part is, can I check in with myself at least, every hour? What's going on in here? Emotionally? Am I hungry? Am I full? Do I need to move? Are there parts that are hurting? Am I irritable? And that irritability is actually a calling to move or connect. And you can build that in without taking time off from work. And you'll find that when you do, you'll be more efficient at your work because you'll be tending to yourself. But here's the other part. When 5 o'clock comes, you also won't be such a, so wasted by the end of the day that you have to turn to all these other things that then become the vicious cycle, right? We're exhausted from our 9-to-5 job. So then we go and we want to veg out and scroll or drink, or everyone has their thing that they do. If you actually meet those needs during the 9-to-5 and check in with yourself, then maybe at that 5 o'clock, you'll want to go for a walk too, Yeah,
I think that's a really important point. Even if it's take a few deep breaths and do that kind of internal, like, how's it going today?
Yeah.
And because then even just like a little, like, you'll be like, oh, you know what? I can feel my left hip it's a little tight today. Maybe I should, when I do walk, I'll be really mindful when I put my foot on the ground, and just, because that's an opportunity also to reconnect. Like right now, my back was going to go into spasms. It's like, I'm in a 2-day period where, my leg is very heavy. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm not going to lay down. And you go to lift up and you go, oh, who's that? And I was moving today, but gingerly, but I was also like, I'm going to use this movement to get my body to reactivate and sort of reintegrate itself. and maybe my back did what it did for,
communication,
something, but it's like people don't realize that also movement is such an easy way, such a great tool to bring everything back together into some kind of harmony and homeostasis and not, parsing it out. So you have a list of reasons in this book. And you mentioned something, urge surfing, when we were talking about scrolling.
Love it.
It just made me think of I'm just going to ask you guys what urge surfing is, because I think it's
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Well, yeah, surfing.
Yeah.
And we all can imagine a wave, right? So an urge is a lot like a wave. It goes up, it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. And then somewhere along an urge, I don't know if it's an urge to scroll or an urge to eat or an urge to smoke or an urge to do something, right? It increases and there's a moment where we want to jump off, right? There's a moment where I can't handle it. It's going to keep on. We think, sometimes I'll draw it on a piece of paper with a client, like, what do you think your urge is going to do? And they draw the arrow straight up to the sky as if that urge is going to explode up into the universe and it's going to destroy them, right? So we jump off. And when we actually give in to the urge, we scroll or we eat or we, whatever our urge is, what happens is that the next time the wave is steeper and we get off a little sooner. We don't develop the capacity to be with the sensations of an urge. And this comes from Alan Marlatt, who's a smoking researcher. And he developed this practice. I mean, it's a mindfulness practice where you follow the urge of that wave and you just pay attention to it and you notice it go up, increase. What does it feel like in your body? What is it? What do you notice sensation-wise? And you don't jump off. And what you will find is that the urge will come back down again. And if you surf an urge enough, you get better, just like any kind, you can become a better surfer. Yeah. You can be a little bit less wobbly on it. And that is a powerful skill to have with all of the things that are increasing our urges, right? So our dopamine system, we're what did Anna Lemke say? We're cacti in a complete flooded with dopamine, right? In a rainforest of dopamine. So if we can practice this capacity to surf the urge to scroll and not scroll, then maybe we can get out of bed and go and do the thing that we want to do. A lot of folks they're losing their movement time to their phones. I mean, this is like a real thing, or they're losing their meditation time. They like open up their phone to like do their meditation app and they're like, and I was in there for half an hour and I couldn't meditate. And I was like, yeah, that sucks. Like, this is precious time. So we can surf that urge, get out your phone and just, notice it in your body and don't push it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting how it pulls you. And I'd be so interested when we're smartphones, like 2008-ish. I'd love to see the numbers on what was the battle. Was it booze and food before? And now it's digital, which also is exciting because it means that we can transfer it any way we want.
Mm-hmm. The skill.
Yeah.
The skill.
Because it was like, well, before it was the bottle and the, cheesecake. And now it's social media. So it just means we have this impulse and we want to find a place, an escape to hang it. So we have the ability to adapt to not only riding the wave, but then saying, okay, I'll have these built-in practices, a 5-minute meditation, a breathing practice, or go take a walk versus, go into the impulse.
But there's a reason why you're riding the wave too. I think that's part of it.
You mean you build a reason?
You build a reason into why you want to ride that wave.
Yeah.
You're not just doing it because it's like, that there is something about not engaging in that addiction. So there's two things that drive the addiction. One is you're driven by the relief of jumping off the wave. You're driven by I feel so much better when I don't have that feeling. Like I want to use that thing, right? And then the other part of why we're driven by addiction is it feels good to use it, right? So you need to find something that is worth it to surf for. Yeah. And that's going back to the woman that hasn't exercised or moved her whole life. It's like, what would be worth it for you? What is it that would be good enough? I mean, walking across Scotland I would rather walk across Scotland with Katy than be on a phone. I mean, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So that sounds like it's worth it, So do
you teach people how to not only land on their why, but I think we have to keep tuning up, updating our whys because we're changing.
Absolutely.
It just, life changes. We're different, every year, every month, we're becoming different people. How do you teach people the skill to get in touch with, well, what is my why right now?
Well, I always prompt people to find their movement why. I mean, if you're just like, I know I need to exercise, but yeah, or even if they're not even to the butt, like they know they need to, it's not really, Diana will use the concept of values, and I'm thinking more of what's your training program centered around, right? Do you have a competition? And then of course, most people don't have a competition, but it's going to be, I'm training for menopause right now. Mm-hmm. I'm training for, maybe it's a vacation. A lot of people will say, I have this trip of a lifetime coming up and I don't want to, my whole family's going and turns out that I'm not going to be able to take the tours or do anything because I couldn't walk across cobblestone. I didn't have the energy to spend being out and about for 12 hours because I was on vacation. Like I'm so used to doing, working around the house. And I just didn't think that I needed to train to go on vacation. But a lot of people do if you're doing this trip of a lifetime. And you got to find there's ages and stages. Grief is a season of life. Injury is a season of life. Maybe you'll change your movement why to be like, I just had this surgery and my priority is to recover physically. That's a different protocol than if you didn't have that injury and you want to be able to go camping with your family for 4 days. So you have to identify why you want to be physical for the practical reason. And that's more of that exercise science programming approach. But then values, I don't know if our values are shifting it, but is the reason I want to go on the camping trip, is the reason I want to recover physically, that's connected to something even more deeply, and that's overall my values. So you have to have those figured out too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that you're the stepping stone to the values, because if you dig one layer deeper, why do you want to go on that camping trip? What is important to you about that? And for every single person, it will be different. Like our values are so unique to us. So for one person, maybe like, I want to go on a camping trip because I am an adventurer and I want to go and explore and I'm super curious and I love to like not have any structure and just, for someone else, I want to go on the camping trip because it's the time that I get to spend with my kids off a phone. It's like they don't bring the phones. It's, 24 hours, or I want some solo time, right? And because I just need time with myself to go inside and have some quiet and get to know what's going on in here. The values that are underneath that may be adventure, connection, self-reflection. And when you can boil it down to those, then you're like, okay, how does my movement support my self-reflection? That's such an important thing for me. And if movement can support that, then all of a sudden I have this like fuel, this like core of fuel that never goes out. And that core of fuel will motivate me when I have that I don't want to wake up in the morning, I don't want to thing. And that's what I feel. I mean, I feel that inside my body now, where even if I don't want to move, I have the core of like, for me, movement is is what allows me to be in my recovery. It's what allows me to feel grounded and connected to this planet and those, and to connect with people that I love. And those are like top values for me. So I wouldn't trade that out. But Katy's so good at making it like tangible. Like, okay, so you're planning for this, and how can movement help you get that thing done?
Yeah, you got to figure out like what are the moves that are going to recover my hip, and what are the moves that are going to make it so I can do the camping trips. So there's that practicality that I want people to have too.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how disconnected. I am. Recently, I've been really contemplating. Like we're spirit. Mm-hmm. And so much of how forward facing is, and being a 6'3" woman, believe me, my physical body has really been a conversation starter since, I was 6 feet at 12. Mm-hmm. I have tall daughters. I watch them having to experience this. And so it's this weird thing where you go through all of this and you are constantly, if you really get through it, it's like, yes, I really want to and take care of my body because it's the body that hugs you. It's the body that can handle, things. but it's also getting deeper with that and going to the spirit. And what I finally came to, I think in my 40s, was like, if I can feel pretty good, it's a better place to house the spirit. It sort of allows more room, because when you don't feel good, I feel like it stunts you, right? When you're in pain, if anyone's had a surgery or a sickness or a thing, you're not really yourself. And so I think we've gotten our 3D world has really gotten us all to be grounded into our bodies. Oh, I'm a blonde. I'm a size this. I'm a ha-da-da. And so within it, it's weird. It's like, oh, actually use the body as a tool to allow the spirit to experience all the things, whatever they are. And and quite frankly, I feel like you weirdly have to have this relationship with your body to have a deeper relationship with yourself. And it sounds so kind of backwards, but I think it's part of it.
I used to I was a clinical director of a treatment center for eating disorders, and it was an IOP, so like intensive outpatient, where people would come right out of the hospital, and they'd come in, and they'd all be on out of the hospital. Old school treatment, you'd restrict people from exercise, right? So, you're underweight or you're a compulsive exerciser, so they'd make you like you cannot exercise. And part of my work was this, like, how are we going to introduce this thing back in? And what is it going to look like for you? And we'd have all these different practices we'd do at our center. Like, we'd do Tai Chi, and we'd do yoga, and we'd do mindful walk, different things. And that kind of like reclaiming of movement as a connection to spirit or connection to my inner energy, or like that you said, we're so focused on the body that we're disembodied. We're so focused on the body that we are not in our body. And so if you want to get embodied, it's almost like you have to let go of the body in some way. And kind of how it looks. Movement is, if you really get into moving, like some of these like ecstatic dance classes, or you really like let yourself move, is not like, it doesn't look always
No, it's not
great.
slick.
No.
It's not slick.
Yeah. But it feels amazing. Right. And if you, even some of the exercises that Katy teaches of like things that kind of like these little, it's not like a big deal. It's not she's doing these like little tiny movements where she's teaching me the head ramp and all these things, not all that impressive, but you're embodied when you're doing it. And that's what I've just in reclaiming my own relationship with movement and helping others do that. That's what I'm interested in, because of exactly what you're saying. It's so much more than what we've been taught. It's like we've all just been this cage of what exercise and movement is. And it's time to walk out and say, there's so much more to it. It's going to be so much better.
Yeah. And I do think, and Katy, you and I probably agree on this, for most of us, it's this weird in and out of, especially if you have a long practice, of you do have to put structure around it and, a time and a schedule to be free. And so it's this constant flowing in and out of, no, I'm doing this rigid kind of planned thing, timed, sometimes measured, so I can be free. And so I had an aunt. I was raised for a few years, not by either one of my parents. And I called her Aunt Norette. And she said, kid, we got to learn the rules. She's from New York. So then we can break them. But we got to know what they are. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's both of these things happening simultaneously all the time in this. Because it's not going to happen for you. It's not going to show up. It's not going to fall into your day. But there is great freedom in it.
I mean, you're the psychologist. I wonder what you're thinking about when you hear that as well. But I would say too that I am able to sort of relax and open when I've checked some of my boxes a certain way. I like that container. So maybe there's a different way to access. I mean, we're still talking about spirituality a little bit.
Yeah, but it's both, because it's also even the freedom just to be like, it is what it is. Like I look in the mirror some days and I go, holy shit, time is rolling.
Yeah.
You know, when you book your airline ticket and you have to fucking scroll the thing back to your birth year, I'm just like, is this for real? And I'm like, zing, zing, you know? And so, but it's being okay with that. Yeah. It's having a sense of humor about that.
Yeah. And I also think that this is probably the time too, where movement is no longer so connected to physicality, because like when you're in a certain phase, movement works a certain way. And there's just a certain, you think you got the understanding of like how I am is really connected to the movements that I'm doing. And then you're like, I'm still doing the same movements and I am not how I am, And so then you start to be like, oh, but just because I'm not how I am, I still feel good because of these movements. So maybe the reason I felt good wasn't just only connected to my physicality. Maybe other parts of me were being nourished. And it's still I would say this long walking pilgrimages that I do for me are a portal to spirituality a little bit. We taught a workshop that was based on, it's really hard to find your values. I find that tricky to nail down those words. I get the concept of, values, get them. And then you're like, now pick the 3. And then you have to do that extra deep. I'm not a journaler. I'm just not that. But this is sort of my version of journaling. I'm going to find my words. And then it's like, here's all the domains of your life. And Diana's like, you've got, I'm like, you've got work and you've got occupation. But you also have, your family and home life. And then you've got your broader community. And then you've got spirituality as a domain of life for everyone. It looks different for everyone, but it is a domain. And then it's like, how does movement connect to that space? For some people, your spirituality container, maybe you go to a church and that everything in the church is sitting down. There's no movement or physical connection to it. And you're like, man, if I could just increase the movement in my spiritual container, then it would meet more of my needs. Or maybe movement is the conduit to spirituality. Maybe it's a static dance. Maybe you just need to drum. Maybe you need to paddle really hard. Maybe you need to walk across those mountains. Maybe you need to compete with a group of people and get into that flow state. Like our spirituality, I think, is so individual, but if you can do that journaling work, even if you don't write the words down, but stop and think about, how would my spirituality be served with physicality? Then that becomes, I think, a pretty good movement. Why?
And I think what all of us are talking about right now is the wisdom, wise movement. So we're we've been on a train of just movement shoulds. And when Katy's talking about like, how could you bring movement to your spirituality? How would your spirituality enhance your movement? That's wise movement. And in psychology, when they start to define wisdom, it kind of goes back to that. Like, do we need to create a container? We need both, right? When they define wisdom, they define it as sort of this Venn diagram of both problem-solving skills, cleverness, wittiness, procedural, how to do the procedure of things, right? There's the brain kind of stuff to this. Like you got to figure out, when are you going to move? Where are you going to fit it in? Is your space set up for movement, or is it like this place where you can't move at all, right? And then it's a Venn diagram. So the other side of that Venn diagram is your values, your heart, your compassion, your interconnection, your feeling of being part of something bigger than this exercise class that you ran or whatever. And when you overlap those two, when you have your, sort of your wit and your cleverness with your values, then you start moving in a really wise way. And that's what I think you kind of, comes with, wisdom doesn't come with age, but you do gain some experience with age that, if you're scrolling your thing for more years, that means you've had more life experience to know that like that type of movement doesn't work for me anymore. I need a wiser way to move that has longevity and flexibility to it. And I need to use my brain to figure out, use some behavioral principles. We're all up on habits and how to, develop habits and reinforce habits. And
can we decide, is it 90 days? 21? Is it 30?
Is this 10,000 hours?
The research is
what is it? Come on.
261 days is what the one study showed. So,
Really?
and with a variability from like 90 to, you know, 300 and something, right? So it's not
Depending on how hard you are.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but we have all of those tools. I mean, we have so many tools and apps and all of that, but I think it's more, we got to go to more than that.
Yeah. And I think at those also, not only is it the habits, but it's creating the infrastructure to reinforce the habit. Because you can say, I'm going to get up every day and do 10 minutes of quiet time or breathing. But if you don't get up either 10 minutes earlier or figure out a way, it's just not going to happen. It's just,
or be flexible. If that 10 minutes doesn't happen in the morning, are you going to,
can you grab it?
Where are you going to grab it?
Can you grab it? This podcast is brought to you by OneSkin. I've been using OneSkin for a few years now. It was given to me as a present. First, I got one of their SKUs called Face. I bought Eye, and I have to tell you, I am really loving their sunblock. But let's talk about OneSkin. OneSkin was founded in 2016 by an all-women team of scientists. These are serious PhDs in things like skin regeneration, stem cell biology, immunology. And after testing the efficacy of more than 900 so-called anti-aging peptides, I know we've all heard the story, they decided to develop their own, and it's called the OS01 peptide. It is the first ingredient to reverse skin's biological age, and they do that by reducing the accumulation of senescent cells. And senescent cells are a key driver of skin aging. So this is how the OS01 works. It works at the cellular level to improve key aging biomarkers, but it does that while reducing the visible signs of aging, including lines, wrinkles, and yes, sagging skin. OneSkin's entire process, because they're so serious, is run in-house, strictly adhering to the rigor of the scientific process from start to finish. Every claim is based on lab or clinical studies and documented on their page. OneSkin believes that the purpose of skincare is not just to improve how you look, even though, come on, but to optimize your skin's biology at the cellular level so it's more resilient to the aging process. So it's not just making you look better now, but helping you defend itself later. OneSkin is redefining the aging process with their proprietary OS01 peptide, the first ingredient proven to help skin look, feel, and behave like its younger self. They are offering you 15% off with the code Reece, REECE, at oneskin.co. That's ONESKIN.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with the code Reece. Don't forget. And after you purchase, they might ask where you heard. You can tell them that you heard it from me. Don't forget oneskin.co, and don't forget your code Reece. This podcast has been brought to you by Ritual. Did you know that 97% of women ages 19 to 50 are not getting enough vitamin D from their diet? I know we really learned this during COVID, and you'd think that we would be able to get it from the sun and food, but we're just not. And Ritual is essential for women 18 plus was shown to increase vitamin D levels by 43% in a clinical study, and that was just in 12 weeks. And they make it so easy. They take 9 key nutrients in 2 delayed release capsules per day that optimize your body's absorption, so it's bioavailable. It's gentle on an empty stomach, so you don't have to navigate, have I eaten, haven't I eaten? It even has a nice little minty essence at the end, so you don't get, I call it the vitamin burps. I don't love it. So they have really thought about everything. Ritual's multivitamins are vegan, non-GMO, project verified, gluten and major allergen free. They're even a certified B Corp, so best practices, and all of the ingredients are made traceable. So the thing for me that I love is high quality ingredients. You know what you're getting. You're not wasting your time. There's no more shady business. Ritual's Essential for Women 18 Plus is a multivitamin you can actually trust. They will give you 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/Gabby. You can start your Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Gabby for 25% off. That's ritual.com/Gabby, ritual.com/Gabby. The other thing I was talking to a friend of mine about is when she travels, she said, I only bring my Ritual because it sort of really covers all the bases. So it makes taking supplements really easy. So if you're curious, head to ritual.com/Gabby. You talk, I love the, acceptance and commitment therapy. the ACT. I thought that was just those words put together. Acceptance. So like it's an agreement. You agree. Movement. Yes. Very good. And commitment.
Acceptance is also, you accept that there might be some difficulty here. It might be uncomfortable. You're saying, yes, I'm accepting what this experience is. I'm saying yes to the experience. There's a really simple walking meditation that I learned, which is with one foot you say yes, the next foot you say yes, the next foot you say thank you, the next foot you say thank you. So acceptance has that quality of the sort of the root of the word of acceptance is to receive. I receive what's being offered to me in this moment. And whether I like it or not, you don't have to like it. You don't have to approve of it. You don't have to want it, but you still receive it. So that's the acceptance part of ACT. And ACT is it's a psychological approach that's been around for 40 years. There's a tremendous amount of research behind it. There's over 1,000 randomized controlled trials. I am not responsible for ACT. It's been built on the backs of many. So Stephen Hayes is sort of the founder of ACT. And I've developed a good relationship over time, gotten to learn from sort of the researchy technical side of things, but ACT has so much heart. And that's what I like about it, that it has a strong evidence base, but it has a lot of flexibility to it. And it's built on the human processes of the mind, and the body that help you develop more psychological flexibility. There's a whole protocol to it. And we tap a little bit into the protocol in this book. We draw from the processes, and that was fun to kind of make it real hands-on. We have these little icons in each reason, like in this question, like I can't move because my cats are crawling on me.
Can't get on the floor.
These were all real questions that people sent in. I'm like, Katy, this is impossible. I can't get on the floor to do my physical therapy exercises. But we indicate which of these 6 core processes are you using. Are you using acceptance? Are you working with flexibility of the mind, cognitive flexibility? Are you working on your values here? Maybe we suggest that you zoom out and take a bigger, broader perspective. Are you using some behavioral committed action? And then we add self-compassion as well. So we're teaching these skills through every single one of these reasons so that hopefully by the end you have the skills and your reason is going to be unique to you, but you have a sense of how to apply it in this ACT way.
But I did love it and, sense it. And obviously you guys talk about it in the book and I just really appreciated that. How many, is it 44, 48? How many? I forgot.
44 reasons.
Yeah, 44 reasons. So I have to ask, so I don't have time, I'm assuming is the number one?
It's a whole chapter.
Yes.
It's a whole
right?
chapter.
With many reasons embedded in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the most surprising? Even if it didn't make it into the book, if there was a reason you heard that you thought, whoa, in all my experience and time, I haven't heard that one, or a few.
I really liked the question about the dog. This was a person who was like, I can't go for a walk because my dog no longer wants to go for a walk. I thought
there's no dog in the world that doesn't want to go for a walk, by the way.
This person's
dog. And so, you look at all these reasons and you're like, there are a zillion reasons that people will come up with that are hyper specialized to their circumstances. But we kept this one in because and it's my favorite answer and we go through, Diana does all the psychological processes like, okay, well, maybe you can make it more enticing for the dog, you don't
swear at people. You're unbelievable. I know. Katy, what would you and I?
I was swearing.
I was the tough love. Yeah. There's a couple times
she's like, put some treats in your pocket.
That's literally one of the things to do. A lot of heart. And I was, this is, my kids were like, what's good cop, bad cop? Because I kept saying it as I was around, like, okay, I'm going to have to do a little bad cop here. I was definitely coming in like the coach.
Yeah.
Because you need that. Some people need that energy. I need that energy. I also like the heart. I can also use the heart. It's not easy for me to generate the heart. So the marriage, I think, was pretty good. So I was proud of my answer, but we also put at the beginning, this is about a dog, but you could put my teenager won't come with me.
Mhm.
My spouse won't come with me. My best friend. So it doesn't matter because psychology of animals, we're all animals. So that was
Wink,
a
wink.
surprising one. And I was really happy with how that one turned out.
Any other ones that you really think are worth?
Well, so yeah, I mean, when Katy and I wrote this book, how we kind of set it up was we got all of these all these reasons in, and then we sorted them into these categories. It's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable on a screen. And then Katy gave me all of them to answer from a psychological, because I know what Katy's going to do, which is like all this cool movement ideas. I mean, she's so out of the box creative in the way that she approaches movement. But I had to first approach it as if my job is to be the psychologist. And some of these felt like the dog, they felt really, really hard to answer from a psychological perspective. So what you said to me that was so helpful is just imagine them coming in and they're sitting right in front of you. And what do you do? When you sit down with someone, what do you say to them? Because my tendency would be just to go into all the research and all that. And I realized that so much of the beginning answer to every single one of these questions is deep validation and listening and hearing, no matter what your reason is, it is hard for you. And you also wrote in because you want to move.
You already made the effort.
You wouldn't have written this in. You wouldn't have, if there isn't a part of you that longs for this. So probably one of my harder ones was the question about purity culture. And a person that felt like moving their body, they grew up in a way where they weren't free to move, and so that was sort of from a psychological perspective, like that one was sort of working. I really used a lot of self-compassion with that one, and also sometimes it's finding the support and communities of people that understand and relate, and finding resources, books. I mean, we give ideas around podcasts and books and places that you can go to learn more as well. Yeah.
Is this typically like females that it wasn't ladylike to move, and maybe the way you're dressed, when you talk about that? So what would be I would imagine walking would be the most achievable. How would you, I grew up in such the opposite, right? I grew up, in the Caribbean, and it's like the opposite. You're outside all day long. We didn't have phones. I mean, you were playing, you were like a bunch of animals in the best way. So because a lot of people don't have a movement culture. They didn't grow up in a moving family. And they don't want to get sweaty. You talk about that one. I love that one. I hear that all the time. What about my makeup? Halfway through, right? Like women,
hair
at lunch.
People don't want to get their hair,
Yeah, of course. This is a real thing.
Yes.
You have 45 minutes at lunch, and you're going to come back to the office like sweaty and gross. So, I mean, I have a confession. I have that some days where I know if I have to work later, literally like, you want to go in the sauna? And I think about the luxury. I have access to a sauna of going and getting all sweaty and wet. And my hair's going to get wet, and I'm going to have to start over. And I'm like, that's just not efficient. It's a real thing.
That happened to us. We were walking in LA yesterday or 2 days ago, and it started raining. And I'm like, we're walking to a park. I blew out my hair. And Katy's like, let's walk. It's like a mile. I'm like, it's raining. It's a mile. I blew out my hair. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. What'd you do?
We walked. And we came in a little, a little mousy, a little bit. Yeah.
Because in the end, it doesn't matter.
And I feel so my values, like I don't have like aesthetics and that's just not a higher value for me than the movement. I think about this all the time going, man, I wish
that's very masculine though.
Better. I mean, perhaps.
It's more of a masculine kind of energy of like, raw, we'll work it out. I
have 6 brothers, and my sister's the same way. We're like, of course.
At the end of the day, though, if I were to look back over, I always like the zoom out. So that's the perspective taking process.
Yes.
Could you zoom way, 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 way out here? If you're zooming way out, what would you, looking back on your day, would have wanted to do? Go in the sauna with your husband, or have the nice hair? Go on the walk with Katy, or have the nice hair in the interview? Are you going to remember the hair in the interview, or are you going to remember the walk with Katy? And if you accumulate that over the course of your life, what would that accumulation lead to? lots of walks with Katy versus lots of blow dried hair.
Yeah.
Now, there is
That's a
times
great
where I'm
point.
like, I'm so glad I blow dried my hair for that. Like I'm glad that I blow dried my hair for
Yeah.
that I honored that part of me too. So again, you got to be flexible with it. And it's just not like now we have to all be granola none of us should be wearing makeup and, blah, blah, blah. But moment to moment, you can kind of,
That's
make that adjustment.
Sometimes there are many times I say yes,
Yeah.
and I go in there and I go, thank you. Because Laird will always create the opportunity. He has a big motor. He can create the energy for everybody. Want to go do this? Want to go do that? And because I can get locked in on the details. Like, you see the book? I can get locked in, loaded, got a lot done. Yeah. And I always go, hey, thank you so much for the invitation, because also he hasn't given up on me. The invitations keep coming. And I know, and I go, I know. Because I always feel so much better. Whenever we say yes, we're never going to be unhappy about saying yes to those walks or those opportunities. And it's so funny how we have to keep relearning it.
All the time.
It is really, really interesting to me.
And maybe you can go in the sauna for 5 minutes. Maybe you can exercise for 10 minutes.
Yes.
I think we're not flexible. It's just this either or the whole time. I can either do a 45-minute sweaty workout, or I will just sit at my desk and eat lunch. It's like, well, why don't you find a bout of movement that doesn't make you sweat? That's also an option. That practicality of just think beyond maybe the perception that there's two choices. There might be something in between.
And you'll see a lot of people where it's like, hey, they don't want to go to the gym. They want to play a game.
Yeah.
Or they want to go out in nature. And there's people who they want to be in a gym. They want to time everything and measure everything. And what you guys suggest is like, figure that out. What's your jam? And one of the things that I really appreciated was people talking about, hey, the joy of movement and navigating kind of social pressure, or, sort of this hodgepodge. And you mentioned the word joy. And what's funny is when I hear the word joy or bliss, I always laugh like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not joking. Have you experienced bliss in your life? Honestly, Katy.
I'm not really a bliss out kind of person, but I think I'm just kind of I'm so the same sort of all the time. And I feel it's pretty positive. So I don't have peaks of joy, and I also don't have super lows. I just my thermostat's at 70.
Yeah, I relate to this, and I feel such a deep sense of, I can find gratitude everywhere all day long, and I don't need to talk about it. I notice it. I see it. I can see a bird. I can notice the wing. I can see the way it hops. I have a quick flash of gratitude, but I don't have to go, oh, Katy, oh my God.
Yeah.
I saw this most beautiful hummingbird, and it just, it's like, I don't need to do it that way. But I think it's important for people to understand that all the ways is okay, but as long as like you're feeling some of those feelings, joy, even awe. Like if we cannot see certain things each day, a sunrise, a child, whatever, and just have that moment of like awe of how amazing life creation is. But not everyone's going to do it the same way. And I think that that's like, okay. Cause when I think a lot of times people think, oh, if I'm going to experience joy and all these things, it has to be this monumental.
There's balloons.
And the beam came down.
And this is where language trips us up. So yes. I just think that there's so many words that don't really put the finger on the experience. And I mean, as you were saying joy, I could say, wow, in the last period of time together, I've noticed waves of joy where there's been moments like, wow, this is fun. We're just riding this little flow wave. And then I've experienced moments of fear. And those are strong words. You felt joy and fear and, this space. Well, when we tune into just sort of the inner landscape of what's happening inside of us, we can put whatever words we want in, but it's just noticing in your body the variety of experiences that you have while moving. And I think that moving our bodies increases the variety of experiences that we have in our inner world and in our external world, right? So that's what I'm interested in, is like, can you get a little bit more expansive? And use whatever word you want to put on it. You don't have to say joy and bliss if that's like,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
no, it doesn't
there's other
cringe me,
words.
but I
Yeah, it
always
doesn't
laugh.
relate. Yeah, you don't
I'm like,
relate.
do I have to put linen on and like go,
Yeah.
under the Phoenix? Like, what's up?
But see, I would be down for that.
I know. I
I'm
know.
like, bring me the Phoenix and the linen.
I have a kid. One of my kids she can go
She's
full
joy
on.
wired.
Yeah.
Well, just very, yeah. And I'm always like, whoa, it's great. And that's the thing I think that people don't understand is your job is actually, heal your specific wounds, right? We were given we all got zapped in some way, but it's okay to do it your way, and the fact that the two of you've done this project together, I think is really, really important because you do speak such different languages, but ultimately it's like you're going to be kind of arriving at the same neighborhood, and I think that's really, really valuable. Technology. Can we talk about technology in this
as a barrier to movement?
Yeah, I think it's an excuse. And then the best is you mentioned it earlier, even like, oh, well, I use my app to meditate, or, even think about white noise for sleep, or mindfulness apps or things like that. Maybe what your experience and sort of some ideas that you've offered to people around technology. So talk to me about technology in the sense of this is a big one for people.
And urge surfing was really connected to technology, which Diana can speak to. And then what I was trying to, again, with that practical environment modification is, can you set up your technology to help you instead of hinder you? Can you use the timers to, one of the questions was, I wake up with this intention to take my morning walk, and I just pick up my phone, right? Because the alarm's on there. And then I start scrolling, and then 45, I use all my walking time, being in bed, looking at something that I didn't even care that much about. And so the practical way of using that tool is, can you set a second alarm to kind of maybe bump you out of the state like 15 minutes later? And you can write now what's on the alarm. So it's like, morning walk. You said you were going to do this.
Yeah.
I love you. Get up now.
You'd say that? I'd be like, move your ass.
I put on I love you. I put in I love you.
You do?
I did on my phone.
Nice.
So I'm changing. I'm older. I'm changing.
Wow. Nice job.
Just a little reminder. It's like you wanted this, or to load your phone with the video program that you want to do. Like there are endless resources for movement. I mean, never before have you been able to go find exactly the length and type of workout that you want, taught by the type of person that you want and the background that you want.
Yeah.
It's all there. So maybe carve a little time to download, or just put YouTube links in your notes feature and just say, I'm going to do one, before I start scrolling anything else. So at least it's in your hand like everything else.
It's one of those, it's another frenemy thing, right? So we don't want to say technology is all bad, but one thing I've noticed in my house, I've gotten more aware of, is the moment when it gets awfully quiet. Kids are home, husband's home, I'm home, and wow, isn't it so quiet in here? Why is it so quiet? Because one kid's in one room, another kid's in another room, husband's working on usually something for me, thank you. He's so helpful. And I'm working on my stuff. And we're just, in the quiet little space, in our own little sedentary spaces, not connecting. And I've taken that as a cue of my household should not be this quiet, because that means we're all in on something else other than each other.
Yeah.
And if we have some kind of cue that's a wake up, we just need lots of wake ups on all of our devices. I have a bell that goes off on every single device in our home every hour. And that hour is a bell to wake up, take a breath, be here. What's going on?
Yeah, notice that you're
there.
And
sometimes I'll be in conversation with my husband and the bell will go off and we'll be like, oh, I've been in a workshop. I'll be like leading a big workshop, and my bell will go off, like boom, over the big speakers. And I go, oh, I forgot. Look around, I'm here. And then we could add movement to that as it's another cue to check in with my body. Do I need to move, right? where I see technology also sort of I have 2 boys, but there's this whole other interesting thing is that so much of what we're doing in technology is what we're craving in our lives. So we're watching other people dance. My kids are virtually digging in building things, digging things, wrestling with people. I'm like, let's go outside and dig something and wrestle and dance. And it will, part of the reason why we're doing that technology is that our bodies want to do that. It's activating those mirror neurons and those whole systems that were designed to dig and move and physically engage with each other. So what are you doing? What are you watching that is movement related in technology that you aren't doing? And start doing some of those things and see how it feels different. So we have a lot of, this is all Katy. Katy has had such a personal influence on our household where our playroom is so decked out Katy style, where there's just so much. It's our play.
Yeah.
I have 15-year-olds, still the playroom. It's a playroom.
It never changes.
We have a TV in there, but we have, we have a mini hoop. We have rings that we swap out to different, as Katy's talked about, you have the clips and we swap out rings with a hammock with all sorts of things. And there's constant, and when it's loud, then I know we're moving. If it's quiet, beware.
Yeah. What if someone comes into your office and maybe this is part of the conversation, maybe they've had something really big happen. What happens when, and you talk a little bit about this, there's scenarios that something has actually happened in their life.
Yeah.
That there's a broken relationship between them and movement, but because of something bigger, not just our biology and we're a big crazy world and technology. How do people navigate that? Yeah.
Yeah. So we think about trauma and its impact on our body. One of the body's responses is to freeze, right? So the fight, flight, freeze, right? So when we experience trauma, our body, or grief, our body can slow down, shut down to protect itself. And movement can, for people that have maybe have trauma history, movement can feel very scary. It can feel
because of that connection, right? Because you go deep, you do feel yourself. Yeah. You do check in.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is that there's people like Peter Levine who does, somatic experiencing, where actually the intervention after a trauma, if you look in the wild, the animals in the wild, when they experience trauma, is to shake, right? To shake it off. Right. So there is something about processing trauma through the body, which can be one of the best ways to process trauma, right? So we have to enter it. This is where having psychological support or someone that is experienced with trauma, body-based kind of interventions can be helpful, where movement in my therapy practice, I will use movement as whether it's yoga or it's just simple, can we, bring our arms up and back, or can we put our hands on our body, somewhere to help bring back ourselves to this body in a safe way. And that can be, part of it. So trauma can be a barrier to moving our bodies. Having had just negative experiences, a lot of people have had negative sports, athletes and coaches. I've worked with women athletes.
Like burnt out? Or
either abusive experiences with coaches, sexually abusive experiences with coaches. That is definitely something that I've experienced in my practice.
It's not uncommon.
And it can be, I don't want to go back to a personal trainer. I don't want, don't want
someone to touch me.
I don't want someone to touch me. I don't want, I don't want to put on the clothes that you put on, if you're going into an exercise class.
No spandex.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's just a lot in there, right?
Yeah.
This is the body. The body keeps a score, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot stored up. And that's part of, I think as we become wise movers, it's also understanding your history and how it shows up in the here and now and how to heal it.
Does it surprise you? We're in 2025. We have more information at our fingertips. But it's this weird combination of we've never talked about things more. We've never understood more. We've never had more opportunity to talk about, quote, our feelings. But then it seems like we're more unwell. We're more people. The word mental health, as you know, especially you, Diana, has been now at the forefront of everything for about, 8 to 10 years. So I think for me, what's interesting is it the excavation of it and then the opportunity to go, well, I'm really interested in my mental health. Where do we get to the point where we go, okay, everybody, we know that's unfair. This sucks. That happened to you. Let's get on with it. Let's move towards the places we want to go. So for me, sometimes that is like this weird thing where I go, okay, we've been talking about it. I think it's so brave. It's great. We've all had our shit. But now if you're not getting what you want, you're not feeling the ways you want to feel, you're not showing up into your life the way you want to, what strategy, what do you want to do? So I'm curious. I know, Katy, by the time people come to you, they're probably ready for they're ready for you to sort of say, hey, let's talk about it. But I'm curious for you, Diana, when you have somebody who comes, but they want to almost feels like they want to stay in that state. When do you have to give them a kick in the pants? Like what happens?
Okay. So, I don't know. I do kick people in the pants a little bit, but the words that I wanted to focus on that you said, because there was two things. You said my mental health, and then you went on to we. And I actually think part of the sickness is the my mental health, as opposed to our collective health as we're all sort of cells of one large organism. And if, sort of like cancer, if there's sort of cancer in the body, the whole body isn't well. Right. So when this is an act or nutritious movement or any of it, this is my personal experience as a therapist. And, is that we are so zoomed in on things like diagnoses and mental health that it's not actually making us any better.
Right.
So what's the problem there is that we're not seeing our interconnection or interconnectedness. That when we can start to see it's our wellness, all of us, then we may shift. Sometimes that means I really need to kind of go in and focus up and take care of me and my world. Sometimes it's also, I need to like put my stuff aside and show up for somebody else. Sometimes it's also, I need to let someone come in and help me, because allowing you to help me is helpful to you. We know that with compassion and altruism and all those acts of generosity, acts of giving are very beneficial to the giver. So there's a little bit of this like in our selfie world, the over self-focus that's making us sicker. Yeah. And unfortunately, mental health has been kind of co-opted into that whole model. And then it's like this like toxic wellness mental health model, which it's not making us any better.
Yeah.
Sort of like the health interventions didn't make us any healthier. The diet industry didn't make us any thinner. It's sort of the same kind of thing that's happening, but with mental health.
Yeah, it's a weird thing of like really being able to check in and identify, not turning the body off, not ignoring yourself. But then somehow, unless you've had something really serious happen, which there are people that, of course, that's a different excavation, of almost like finding the ways to kind of move on.
Get over yourself a little.
Get over it, And that's what I appreciate, because ultimately this conversation that you have in this book will help people do that. So I do really appreciate, because for them, not, like I always say to people, for me, I want to encourage people to move and take care of themselves and live their best life. But if they don't, it's like, hey, I'm going to be rolling over here. I mean, I'm going to be in my practices doing my thing. And so it's really wanting that, especially for the younger generation. I think we've done them a disservice, and now they're in an echo chamber with each other. And on top of it, my group, my generation, we're not acting like good adults. So we're not being great examples of kind of showing up. I think it's important. That's part of it. So in the book, the being an example, I think in the end, that's what I'm banking on.
We definitely wanted to make sure every excuse or reason ended with some action to take.
Yeah.
Even the dog one, even after all this loving stuff was, and maybe you can walk if your dog doesn't walk too. You can take that walk and you don't need to take your dog. So I feel like that's kind of that firmness that's also needed. It didn't get too into just, just psychological analysis or figuring out what's going on. It's like, and what's the action you can take here and take it?
What if somebody's in a partnership where one person
This is the common question.
Whole chapter.
Well, of course. That's why I want to bring it up. So what do they say? If you have never mind a partner, if you have someone in your friend group that is obese, your chances of being obese is like 6-8 times more likely, right? So now let's add it. What if you're in a partnership with somebody they're just not on the same page, and we cannot, it's like alcohol or something. You cannot force people. You can be a great example. You can encourage, you can show, you can invite, but you can't get there for them.
Yeah.
So what does one do?
Well, acceptance and commitment. I actually had this experience over the past few years. My husband developed severe vision loss. And as a result of his vision loss, and he had to have multiple surgeries at UCLA, and he also couldn't move. Like he wasn't allowed to because of the pressure. And then that led to him, even when he got better, this was a mover. Like, this is a guy that I've moved with forever. And all of a sudden my hot husband, who used to go for walks and throw medicine balls at me, is not moving. And I'm writing a book on movement. So there was this first initial, kind of resentment feeling, mad at you. Why don't you, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and I'm doing this, and this, and there you are still, right? We can get into the story. And what I noticed about that story is that it's two things. It did not make my husband move anymore, and it made me feel worse. So notice the story that you're telling in your head about the other person, and get your eyes on your own plate. So that's the first thing. The next part of it is practice acceptance, compassion, and you don't know fully what's going on inside that person's experience and what is hard for them about that. And it makes it, I didn't know what it was like for my husband to go through what he went through. Yeah. And so to be in that judgment place was just creating distance and wasn't bringing us any closer. So that's the acceptance part. The commitment part is, so where are you going to put your energy? If you're not going to put it into that, what are you going to put it into? Keeping your own commitment to your movement, maybe living out your values with that person and really living them out. And then be curious and open to the possibility that if you act from that place, this is a motivational energy strategy, that if you stop trying to convince them to move, that they may find their way, and it's going to be different than the way that you expected. And he's found his way, and he does it his way now. So those would be my kind of let it go a little. Yeah.
It's a really important thing. And I say it to parenting too, especially as your kids get older, because you can do a certain kind of parenting when your children are young. And then as they get older, it's like you could have the fantasy, I should say, that, I'm going to control them. And then what you realize is I'm not, they're going to make their choices and they'll pay the price. And when you get comfortable with that, it is really liberating. And Katy, you might have started to experience this. They like to go in their room. They need to be alone. They need privacy. They need quiet time. They need to recharge and restore from school and being with their friends and all these things. And in the beginning of this, it's one of the most uncomfortable things as a parent, because you think that can't be good for them. But it's actually in a certain way what they need. And to have the comfort to go, okay, I'm going to provide them with a family dinner that I'll invite them to. Sometimes, I know it's a requirement in a lot of homes. I have made it an invitation in my home, and it's taken up most of the time where she'll come down, but it's probably because she doesn't feel like she has to. There have been days where I see her face, especially one daughter in particular, and I say, I'll bring your dinner to you. Like, she's doing schoolwork, she's doing whatever. So just showing that understanding. But I think what you said, Diana, about when we stop forcing that story, because it's an energy too. Because they go, well, I didn't say anything. It's like, You didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are we free, whatever it's going to be is going to be. And maybe it's 10 years down the road, you go, well, you know what, honey, I love you, but maybe we're just in a different place. That's not the case. But I think with kids, it's like they do come back around if you're steadfast. And you're like, hey, I love you. You have your practice. You're an example. And once in a while, I'll give you a quick story. One of my daughters went to New York. She stayed out really late. How do I know this? Because I have the Uber on my phone. As she should. It's totally appropriate. She's a older teenager. It was late. The next day, I also saw that she got an IV for vitamins. So I said, oh, are you getting sick? And she's like, yeah. And all I said was, can you draw a straight line? And she's like, yeah. People are smart. Our kids are smart. Our partners are smart. People are smart. I'm just curious, when you guys get people that come to you that give you the lip service, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. You equip them with a strategy, a plan, a compassion, all these things, and they won't make the move because it's too uncomfortable. What do we do for those people?
Psychologically, what would you do?
In psychology, it's always this balance of acceptance and change. And if you push too hard on change, people will, like your daughter, people will get stuck. But that one line where you said, can you draw a straight line? What you were doing there was you were giving the message of, I care about your health, right? I want to make sure your brain isn't, you don't need to go get treatment somewhere because you drank too much or whatever.
No, it wasn't even alcohol. It was just out. This is my one kid who doesn't
I thought it was
party.
alcohol.
No,
I thought you were doing like an alcohol test.
No, that wasn't. Those are my other two kids.
Yeah.
They were more gnarly.
Okay.
This is my just super social. Woo!
Yeah.
I look cute. Let's go.
Okay, got it.
Get FOMO. No, this wasn't a boozy thing. This was duh.
Yeah.
If you stay out till 3:30 or 4, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. So in motivational interviewing, it's this approach that's used. They use it with everything from substance use, people that are in mandated treatment for substance use, but they use it for hostage negotiation too, right? And the idea behind motivational interviewing, one of my favorite things is sort of the ruler. And Katy and I did this in our workshop. We did it physically with movement. Everyone that is, quote, doesn't want to do something, there's usually a small part of them that's a little bit ambivalent about it. So the ruler technique is on a scale from 0 to 10, how much do you want to, how important is it to you? And how much do you want to get moving in your life? Right. And they're like, I don't have enough time. I'm like at a 1. Like, I really don't. How able do you think are you to make this happen for you? I'm like at a 2. I really don't think I'm able to. So say they're really unmotivated. Then I would say, why is it a 1 and not a 0? Tell me about that little tiny part of you that maybe this sliver of a part that maybe thinks there's something in there for you. Or I would do the other side of that and say, wow, it's a 1. Tell me all the reasons why you hate to move. So I would play with it. Tell me why it sucks. What's the worst part about it? So playing with it as opposed to just going straight into the reason giving of why someone should. Having a conversation, exploring the ambivalence, explore both sides, explore all the parts. And if you spend enough time just exploring all the parts and really listening to someone, then you will start to hear them start to solve their own problem. And then we do something called change talk. As soon as you start hearing someone solve their own problem, you get on that train and you reinforce the heck out of them for solving their own problem and you watch it happen. As opposed to you being the person that you think you're going to solve their problem for them. I've never solved any client's problem for them in my life. They're their own wisdom holders. They have it already when they came into the office. I'm creating the conditions for them to find that wisdom and take that path. And I am like their co-pilot. Like, I'm so excited to get on the plane with you because we're going to go somewhere cool. I don't know. You're going to fly it. And when you take that approach with your teenagers or somebody that doesn't want to move, it is so freeing because you feel less responsibility to make it happen.
It's so scary, but I don't know if there's any other way.
Well, and I was thinking too, when you were saying this, like talking about people coming to psychologists or coming to exercise experts, like what more can I do? It's almost like I don't feel more obligated. I used to feel obligated, like, oh, maybe your program maybe I wasn't clear enough. Maybe I need to break it down. Maybe I need to chew it for you. Maybe I need to eat it and then feed it to you like a baby bird. And I think that that's maybe more about me than about them. Like that I'm obligated to help everyone, that I'm going to take sort of my tendency to not be super emotive with people closest to me, but to take that capacity and give it to the world in some bigger way. So I think I've worked on that enough to be like, oh, that's my own personal wound. And I can just tell you what to do. I can even go out of my way to write a lot of books. Maybe it still lingers in the fact of all the compulsive book writing and let me give you another, let me show you another pathway, which I still feel is my work to do. But these are grown-ups.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's tough love to say you figure it out. I think I've done a lot of pre-digesting. And it's here when you're ready for it.
Yeah. Do you guys feel hopeful? Like, I always think that you have to be optimistic and hopeful because what's the alternative? But when you look at the way the world is and the way we're going, do you think we're going to figure out a way to incorporate or integrate our lives more? Because everything always gets so bucketed. And I do feel that people are trying to integrate it more. Your book is it's an energy, right? It's a great example that there's room and time for this conversation. Do you feel hopeful?
I feel hopeful. I don't think I could work without hope, but I also don't think that what I'm hopeful for is everyone in the world going in the same direction. And I think sometimes we're seeing that as the problem that needs to be solved is if everyone can just do this, then we'll all be in sync. It's more like, can we all, and this goes for mental health, it goes for physical health. I don't think we're really good at meeting our needs right now. I think we're meeting a lot of our wants and feeling a certain way, but meanwhile, our basic needs are sort of declining. And so it's hard to see that you're not meeting your needs when you have so many things and so many, I would say, enjoyable experiences, which may not be the best barometer for meeting your needs. And I am hopeful that we will figure out how to meet more of our needs because we tend to do this. I mean, I think that humanity as a whole has been through many ups and downs. We can see everything that's going on around the world for the first time. And so maybe that's making us perceive that things have never been so catastrophic. But I think that, we've always had catastrophes, and it doesn't mean that everyone comes out on the other side. I certainly wish for more people to come through on the other side meeting their needs. But I think there's going to need to be some education on being more comfortable, being uncomfortable, which is maybe ultimately what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Can we feel more comfortable, or I guess, can we set our barometer or our thermostat for comfort so that it matches more what satiation feels like rather than all the pleasure buttons being pushed at the same time? I'm hoping that thermostat adjusts a little, calibrates a little bit.
Yeah.
I think what makes me feel hopeful is sometimes non-humans. So I'm a bee guardian, and we have these 2 little beehives that are outside my therapy office, and in between clients, if I'm like really stressed or just I need to like have this client leave my system to make space for the next client, I'll go down to the beehives, and they're just like doing their business. They're just getting it done. So they're all women. They're all ladies, all the ladies. And, like one bee is going this way, one's going, but they have the flight path out of the door, and they know that, fly up and out and go do your thing. And then they all come back together. And it's so soothing to me that this organism can work in its way and they're all working hard. Nobody's complaining about anything. They're doing the hard work. And I think about the little baby bees that are in there. They're all collectively taking care of these bees. That we can learn from that. And it's in our being to do that. I really do believe in like the human biology and brain is, yes, it's built on threat, fight, flight, freeze. It's built on drive. Go get all the things that you want, but it's also built on compassion. Take care of yourself, take care of each other. And I think that could be potential for a shift for us to see and value more of that third one, especially as our threat and our drive is on overdrive and we are feeling spent.
Mm-hmm.
So coming back to the hive, taking care of each other and getting our stuff done that we all need to get done. And we do it in different ways. There's all different types of bees. I could go in a long conversation about bees, but I'll spare you from that. But there's lots of
You
types
definitely
of bees.
seem like she would have been a great beekeeper, wouldn't she?
She is a beekeeper.
Yeah, because you ever see them when they all talk? First of all, don't they have the longest life expectancy?
Well, the queen bee, she lives for like 5 years.
No, I mean beekeepers.
Oh, beekeepers. Oh,
they have the
beekeepers,
high.
yeah,
By the way,
they have long. Yeah, mm-hmm.
And have you ever seen? I've seen numbers. I'm kind of enthralled by them.
Me too.
Yes.
I've seen numbers of them talk, and you think, oh yeah, I need more of that, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
One guy that went to Indian Wells tennis tournament, and last year around the camera, somehow there was a hive and a whole disruption, and Carlos Alcaraz, incredible, beautiful tennis player, was really afraid. So they brought the beekeeper. He had no garb on or anything. And he said, it's like when you hold a baby, you just go in with that energy and they won't, they won't hurt you. He goes, it's only if by accident, like you pinch one or something happens. And he went and got the queen and then kind of sucked up all the other guys and split. And don't get into that bees, the humming and the wings will cool down the earth.
Yes.
They lower the temperature. They're extraordinary. Okay. I won't get
we
into
could
the
go
bee
long.
conversation.
We could go
Okay.
long
Let's not
with
do
these.
it.
But yeah.
So what have you guys learned individually doing this book that surprised you? And what have you learned from the other person? Oh, Katy, because I'm inside your head. I know some of the stuff you've learned already from Diana, but.
I think compassion. I don't think I think I'm a highly compassionate person, but I might not have seen compassion as, I think I had you on for a podcast and you're like, instead of finding your movement motivation from your have to's, from like all these other things, what if you just move because it's compassion? Like it's a nice way of being to yourself. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I don't think that I'm unkind to myself, but maybe I hadn't really thought of what's that messaging behind have to. I'm a grinder, as we talked about, and what's ultimately that motivation for grinding and to find more compassion. Certainly as I'm older, just going, oh, maybe I'm even choosing the same thing. Maybe I'm even choosing the same behavior. But the voice in my head is gentler. Yeah. It's not like, get up, lazy. It's time to rise and shine, time to hit the pavement. It's not that. It's like, oh, you will feel so good when you're done with this. And that gentle mental chatter, I think.
That's long run stuff.
It is. It's the big picture. It's I'm in it for the long game.
Yeah.
And that, negative self-talk as a motivator, I think that's done. I think that's just done.
Yeah.
And it was really cemented and also acknowledging people before I go into the solution, because I am more tough love. I am sort of that, when I hear someone talk about what's going on with them, I'm formulating the solution as they talk. And it's like, great, I heard your problem. Have you tried this? And like, here are some things. And I realize that maybe some people aren't actually looking. It's not that they're not looking for a solution, but they want to hear back that they were understood, that their reason was validated. And I tend to skip that step because I personally don't need that step. In fact, there's nothing more infuriating to me than calling to change something with my credit card or my phone to be like, I hear that you're having I'm like, I'm going to explode because I hear that as a disengaged step that someone is taking on the flow chart of how to diffuse somebody who's being unreasonable. Like, that's how I hear it. And I thought, I'm just asking for this reasonable change. Like, this is reasonable, what I'm
Don't
asking
waste
for.
my
I don't
time.
need you to tell me that I'm being reasonable. I already know that. And I'd like this solution, please. But that's just me, and I'm not everybody, and everybody's not me. So going, okay, I can take this step of saying, okay, I hear that the dog is, that is challenging. If you've had this way of doing it and your dog is protesting, that's hard.
Well, let me add to that a little, because I'm just a few years older than you are, and I coach a lot of people, and something else has occurred to me is when I really pay attention and I look in people's eyes, I will get the better answer and the solution, because they're going to tell me if I really key into them, and so I'll even get the movement part quicker and faster when I actually. You can understand the angles and all of the metrics and the anatomy part, but they're going to tell you quicker which part of their system are they overworking, or any of those little nuances. And then finally, like the dog one, you just jump like you do straight to humor, because you have to. I think it is a real blessing when you hear that. You can't be like this. Oh God, can you believe this person? The dog. It's like, oh yeah, this is a good one.
We have to.
I haven't heard this one
because when you read that dog answer, we all have our own version of the dog answer, and then you're like, oh, this is how you can, when it's detached from you, you can get that clarity. That's why in my work I use examples that use animals and plants, because you're just a step removed from it, and it's not so close to your ego. And then you're like, oh, I see. Yeah, this was my protesting dog, or something similar.
And Diana, what about you? What did you? Was anything surprised you about doing this book? But also, what did you learn? Because you guys knew so much coming into it, but this is an in-depth process of writing a book. So I'd imagine, you're both spit out differently after than before.
Yeah. Well, I think what I learned so much from Katy, but is it doesn't have to be so hard. Most of the things that I've done academically have been like the hardest thing that you can do. Like go to do it in the most hard way that you can possibly find. That's why I've had to come to do all this self-compassion and flexibility work, is because I'm the most psychologically inflexible and self-berating human, right? So with Katy, this was like the most fun, easy project that I've ever done in my life. And I was writing another book at the same time. So I had an idea for a book for years that I've been grinding at, pitching at, blah, blah, blah. Katy calls me up and says, do you want to write this book? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, but I have this other pitch in. And I said, yes. And then like 3 days later, I get this acceptance for my other book.
It's the way it always works.
And I actually consulted with a mentor. He's like, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. And I'm like, but this is, you don't understand. This is like a love project with Katy. This isn't like a hurting kind of thing. This isn't a want to kind of thing. And so she is who she is when she's writing, when she's not writing, in her team, the flexibility, the humor, the ease with which she talks about movement and the hard work is who she is. And it was so fun. It was just fun. I had a fun time with it. It was great. And her team was so flexible and fluid and living, walking the talk, So is that right? Walking the talk. So I like that, to find authentic people that whether this is on or not are the same.
Yeah. And
then I also like that it didn't have to be so hard. It showed me a new way of working that was not so, not so rigid. It opened up a lot of things. And then I think because of that, the other book that I was writing at the same time got so much better. I wrote another book in a such better way because of this experience. We can think about with movement as well. Like, it doesn't have to be like, maybe your own mind is keeping it to be much harder than it needs to be. And there's lots of other perspectives and ways of doing it that you have no clue about. We can learn from each other. We can keep learning. We can keep growing. And it can be fun.
It
can be joyful.
I think about feelings and I think about movement. You always associate like, playfulness with movement and then sort of this seriousness around feelings. And what I have learned being in a very long relationship, and even having kids is like when we can get loose and playful about feelings, even uncomfortable feelings, it gets so much easier. The other night I asked Laird a question. Why did I ask a question? Because I didn't have the information. So I needed to ask the question to get the information. Well, he answered me like we had talked about it for 20 minutes, right? He's like, well, right? And I just said, okay, so check this out. The reason I asked the question is because I don't know. And so I'm looking to know. And when you answer like that, you act like we've been talking about this for 30 minutes. I wasn't edgy. I was kind of being playful and having fun with it. But it's learning, I think. And then it's very clear to him. He was like, oh, yeah, okay, sorry. I mean, and he has his own reasons. He had his hip replaced. He's been in discomfort. He doesn't take pain meds. He stayed awake. It's 3 weeks of pain. Oh, get it. But my point is the other great thing is, even like in the hardest times, someone dies, someone hurt me, someone disappointed me. I think when you marry the two like this and get that playfulness or even thoughtfulness around movement or playfulness in feeling, I think it makes it just easier being a human being.
And when you can keep that, all those other elements around movement, you're a lot less likely to be side railed by things that come up.
Yep.
Because it's not just this one thing. It's like, it can be all sorts of different medicines, so to speak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciate the way the two of you came together because it's just, first of all, it's really unique and that's hard to see. Mm-hmm. Very unique. And I've learned something else, and it occurred to me when you're talking about, kind of your delivery system. We've been taught, loving looks like this, kind looks like that. If you're willing to keep re-examining, re-looking at, and sharing this idea of something that ultimately could be a great tool for people to be helpful, that is loving.
Absolutely.
You're not showing up with a polka-dotted apron and baked cookies with a melodic voice. That we've been told that. It's taken me a long time to understand that loving is a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to put that in your noodle to think about that because it's easy for people to accuse, especially if you're a female mm-hmm. and you're kind of direct, that, so abrupt or whatever. It's like, yeah, no, I'm loving. It's
and
just
I'm feeling.
Right.
But feeling, it might not look like tears all the time and laughter all the time. I have all the same feelings, but they just don't have to all look like Hallmark feelings.
Yes.
Just like mothering doesn't have to look like Hallmark mothering.
Right.
And exercising doesn't have to look like Hallmark exercising.
That's right.
And our bodies don't have to look like Hallmark bodies.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a size 12. I'm 6'3". It's okay. I weigh 180 pounds. Like, it is what it is. Yeah. It's great. We want you to be healthy. That's what we want. Is there anything that I really, a big point that you feel is really important that I missed that you'd like to make the invitation to people? Because before I let you go.
Well, I think for me, a big point in this book is if you've been struggling with movement, maybe the first part of your body that needs to move is your mind. Instead of thinking about it as like, I have to take some physical action, maybe you need to take some mental action first. And that becomes the catalyst for you.
Yeah. What do we say? All is mental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then I add on to Katy's mind with...
I'm the muscle.
Maybe also you need to get out of your head and get into your body.
Yeah.
Get into your heart. That's also part of our body. Get into listening a little bit more than telling, and being in that space a little bit. And you may be surprised. There's all sorts of things that your body is trying to tell you or wants or needs that if you listened, you might move in unexpected great ways.
Did you guys read this book too?
I've written a lot of books.
I know.
This is the first book that I've already read twice. I've just sat down and read it twice because, well, one, it's not 100% me, even though we've
Yeah, it makes it kind of fun when another
Yeah.
person's there.
And
Yeah.
also, I love essays. It's just written where you can just pick it up. It's like
Yeah.
a field guide, opening it up and being like, what's keeping me from moving today? And you just get a little psychological tool, a little perspective, a little environmental modification. And I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it a lot.
So the book is I Know I Should Exercise, But I love that. And I want to thank you both, Katy Bowman and Dr. Diana Hill. And they can get it all the places that books are, right?
All the places.
Can you just remind people where they can find you if they want to find each of you specifically?
I'm at drdianahill.com.
And I'm at nutritiousmovement.com and all the handles.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks you guys so much. Congratulations. It's no small feat to create and finish a project like this. It's really great.
Thanks, Gabby.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for spending some time with me. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you did, feel free to share it with your friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, I want to hear from you. Tell me what's working, what's resonating with you, and how you're getting it done. Keep going.